As the crew prepares to head into their sleep period in about 49 minutes from now, that will round out Flight Day 9 for the Artemis 2 mission. And the crew in the Orion spacecraft, as well as the teams on the ground, are preparing for the re-entry of the Orion spacecraft. That re-entry is scheduled to take place later today, April 10th, with a splashdown targeted off the coast of San Diego, California, around 7:07 p.m. Central Time, 8:07 p.m. Eastern Time. As the Orion spacecraft prepares for that re-entry, once it hits about 400,000 feet, the spacecraft will enter a planned 6-minute communications blackout that is expected around 6:53 p.m. Central, 7:53 p.m. Eastern. And that happens as a result of the plasma that forms around the spacecraft during peak heating. And during the reentry, the crew is expected to experience up to 3.9 Gs in a nominal landing profile. And then after emerging from that blackout period, the Orion spacecraft will jettison its forward bay cover and then deploy its drogue parachutes. That will happen around 22,000 feet, approximately at 7:03 p.m. Central Time, 8:03 p.m. Eastern Time. Shortly after that, the spacecraft will unfurl its 3 main parachutes, that taking place around 6,000 feet to slow the capsule for a splashdown off the coast of San Diego. Again, on the final day of the mission, which we are heading towards now, the Orion spacecraft will be bringing its 4 crew members, which includes NASA astronauts Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, and Christina Cook, alongside Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen, through the Earth's atmosphere for that splashdown in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of San Diego, California. Following that splashdown, a team of experts will ensure the crew is recovered from their landing site and are able to exit Orion safely. So let's go ahead and take a look to learn how NASA and its partners will recover the Orion spacecraft and its 4 astronauts following a splashdown at the end of the mission.
I am Lily Villarreal. I am the Artemis Landing Recovery Director, and this is how you recover a spacecraft. We are here in the well deck of the USS Somerset, where we did simulations of an actual splashdown and what it would take to get the crew out of the capsule and also recover the vehicle. Behind me is the crew module test article. You can actually put people in it. It is actually a vessel. It has all the instrumentation switches that Orion would have. The DoD, Department of Defense, is a very large part of our operations. We have 2 helicopters dedicated for imagery, and we had 2 helicopters dedicated for the capsule. We have a whole entire Navy diver team, and those are the guys out in the open water. We do bring some NBL experts that also go in the open water with them, and they're really the guys who will be the first people who open the hatch and then eventually get the crew out.
I'm Tim Goddard. I'm the EGS Open Water Lead for the Orion and Artemis missions. We're at the Nutribuoyancy Laboratory. It's an off-site campus of the Johnson Space Center. We are training the Navy divers and helicopter rescue. Why we bring them to the NBL is for the very specific and technical nature of how you operate in and around a space capsule. We teach them the specific techniques they are required to do to keep both themselves safe, the flight crew safe, as well as the capsule. This is where we start, and then we'll push out to San Diego, and we do what we call JIT, just-in-time training. By the time they do the actual real mission, they have hours and hours on each phase of that recovery.
Objective for the day is DoD training. So today we're going to be training our divers and our air crews.
Almost every underway recovery, we first start, our first day is always what we call in and outs. And that is really to train the ship on how to handle the CMTA. We fill up this entire wall deck with 7.5 feet of water, and then we do in and outs familiarization runs to train the actual military crew that will be on a ship. We then deploy the CMTA out in the open ocean. We do whatever training exercise that we want to do. We actually like to simulate what it would be from splashdown all the way to recovering the crew back to the flight deck. And then we go into contingency simulations. We actually pretended that we had a hurt crew member, and then how would we deal with that from a medical perspective. The next thing we do is an iteration of recovering the capsule. We've gotten really good at recovering the capsule. We've been doing that for multiple URTs. We did it for Artemis 1. The next day we did a full mission profile, and that is an entire exercise simulating the actual recovery. We have all 4 of our helicopters in play. We have the entire crew suited up in play, and then we go through the checklist of a splashdown.
My name is HM2 Ruben Hickox. I'm the deep sea diving medical technician in the U.S. Navy. Recovery training that we've been doing, a lot of it has been transporting the astronauts safely from the capsule after they land to the ship, as well as utilizing the ship to recover the actual capsule. We have a couple inflatable rafts that we use. One is the stability collar, which is just an inflatable ring that goes around it, and then front porch, which is an inflatable life raft used to attach to the capsule. And once the front porch is stable and we can walk on it, that's when we'll start one by one just taking the astronauts out of the capsule. The search and rescue med techs will hook up with the astronauts and they'll bring them up to the helicopter, fly them to Somerset, and as soon as they touch down, they have medical professionals all over transporting them into the medical bay, making sure that they're good to go.
This is a dream come true. I think everybody that works for NASA says the exact same thing, because it's such a big teamwork type of operation and very complex, and I just thrive and love on those kind of scenarios. It's long days, long hours, a lot of responsibility, but at the end, we all really enjoy it. I cannot wait to see it come back from the moon.
This is Artemis Mission Control in Houston, Texas. You are now again seeing a live view of the Orion spacecraft. This view coming to you from one of the solar array wing cameras. And you can see Earth off in the distance, which is the target for the Orion spacecraft, with that entry and splashdown targeted for later today, April 10th. Splashdown is targeted off the coast of San Diego, California, around 7:07 p.m. Central, 8:07 p.m. Eastern Time. And that video provided a little bit of an overview of that recovery process. So within 2 hours after splashdown, the crew will be extracted from the Orion spacecraft and flown to the USS John Murtha. Recovery teams will retrieve the crew using helicopters, and once on board the ship, the astronauts will then undergo post-mission medical evaluations before returning to shore to board an aircraft that will be bound for NASA's Johnson Space Center here in Houston, Texas. And there on your screen, you can see a little bit of an overview of the upcoming entry and splashdown timeline for the Orion spacecraft. As Artemis 2 nears its return to Earth, NASA teams on the ground are completing those final preparations for Orion's re-entry and splashdown. During re-entry, the service module will separate around 6:33 p.m. Central, 7:33 p.m. Eastern, about 20 minutes before Orion reaches the upper atmosphere southeast of Hawaii. Around 6:37 p.m. Central, 7:37 p.m. Eastern, a final trajectory adjustment burn will fine-tune the flight path before the spacecraft begins a series of roll maneuvers to safely distance itself from departing hardware. Orion will then reach its maximum velocity, approximately 23,864 miles per hour, just before entry interface takes place. And as Orion descends through about 400,000 feet, the spacecraft will then enter its planned 6-minute communications blackout. That is expected around 6:53 p.m. Central, 7:53 p.m. Eastern, and this takes place as a result of plasma forming around the spacecraft during peak heating. The crew is expected to experience up to 3.9 Gs during a nominal landing profile, and then after emerging from that blackout period, the Orion spacecraft will jettison its forward bay cover, deploy its drogue parachutes, and then shortly after that, it will unfurl its 3 main parachutes around 6,000 feet. That expected around 7:04 p.m. Central, 8:04 p.m. Eastern Time, to slow the capsule down for a splashdown off the coast of San Diego, California. Again, that splashdown expected around 7:07 p.m. Central Time, 8:07 p.m. Eastern Time. Following the completion of the Artemis 2 mission, from launch to splashdown, the total distance traveled for the Orion spacecraft, which was named Integrity by its crew, is expected to be a total of 694,481 miles. Again, you are seeing a live view of that Orion spacecraft there on your screen. The crew on board the Orion spacecraft is currently in their pre-sleep period, and they are expected to enter their sleep period in just under 40 minutes from now. Here on the ground, we are in a forward link loss of signal, which means the team here in Mission Control Houston can't call up to the crew, but if the crew needs to, they can call down to the team here in Mission Control Houston. We would just be unable to respond until we regain that forward link.